Good morning and welcome to the Really Helpful Club. I'm Sarah Austin and this is our In Conversation series where we shine the spotlight on different members of our community, business owners, expert leaders, experts all in their own field. And this morning I'm going to be talking to Vicky Midwood. Vicky is the founder of Go Figure Coaching, and this is where we shine the spotlight on the business owner, find out about their journey, what it was, and hear their insights along the way. So I'm going to be joined by Vicky any second and can't wait to hear her story. This is all about understanding the person behind the business. And good morning, Vicky. Hello, welcome. How are you?
I am really good. Thank you for having me, Sarah. Really happy to be here today. Thanks.
Good. Looking bright and sunny and gorgeous this morning, if I may say so. So I was just explaining, I love these episodes because this is our chance. When you go onto someone's website or their LinkedIn profile, and you learn about them and stuff and things, it's very interesting and informs you about sort of corporate journey. It informs you about the services you offer and stuff, which is really important, if you're thinking about something. But this is about getting to know you. What's the person behind the business, understanding your journey. It's that path along the way, which I think is so interesting, because it's that journey to the destination that means that we understand so much better why you do what you do now. And I think is more engaging. It means that we want to do business with you. We want to buy your services. We want to work with you. We want to be your client and so forth. So Vicky, welcome. And it's lovely to hear your story. So Vicky, let's start at the beginning. Let's sort of rewind, life before Go Figure Coaching, if you can remember that, and tell us, share. That word journey is often so overused, but I think it's so important. Tell us about your path to you. Where did it all start?
I love that term, your path to you. Yes, well, for me, it began really when I was little. I was that kid who was different. I had very ginger hair. I was freckly. All of my friends were your classic, very, very skinny, straight up and down kids. And then there was me, who was a chunky monkey. And so I was kind of teased a little bit, not a lot to be quite honest, but more by family members about being a bit porky, a bit chunky, and I was told it was puppy fat and I'd grow out of it. So this began when I was secondary school. But I didn't realise at infant school that I was particularly different. I was a fast runner. I got on with anybody. But in hindsight, when I look back, even then I had issues with sugar and sweets. So my father was in the food industry and would live next door to what technically now would be classed as a supermarket. And I could nip through the back door, which was into our dining room, and go behind the counter where all of the penny mix-up sweet. I don't know if people are old enough to remember a penny mix-up.
I'm definitely old enough to remember penny sweets,
right?
And also this, God, this is really revealing how ancient I am. The the sweets in jars and stuff of these. We put it in a bag.
That's right. The little
post-pandemic,
bag, and you'd have 10p, wouldn't you? And you'd have one of them.
10p actually bought you something.
A lot, bought you a lot.
God, we are revealing a lot here. Yeah, go on.
Even then, I recognised in hindsight that I'd got issues with sugar, and I was addicted to helping myself to these sweets. As I got older, obviously got to secondary school, I recognised that I wanted to lose weight. Who doesn't when you're a teenage girl in a brand new school, and everybody looked taller than me, looked slimmer than me, and I thought was better than me. I'd come from a tiny little village to a private school, and I was out of my depth big time. And I recognized that the very first diet I went on to, I couldn't stick to. All of my friends could, they seemed to be getting results, but me, I was blowing it all the time. So that was the first inkling that there was something different about me. And then my story really morphed into me having bulimia and following the anorexic tendencies, but still being bulimic, because I didn't, in my head, I called myself a failed anorexic because I couldn't not eat. But I didn't want the food to be inside me because I didn't want to put on weight. So I learned to get rid of it. And that was kind of my story. And over the time, I used alcohol as well as food, because I discovered that if I drank alcohol, I didn't need to eat. And for a lot of people I work with, actually, alcohol can set them off on a food binge. For me, it didn't. But there's a strong correlation between food and alcohol. And so I always say to my clients, be careful what you wish for, because I wished not to have bulimia. I decided it would be much easier to be an alcoholic, because at least you can stop drinking, but you can never stop eating. Well, I got my wish. I just got it as well as, instead of.
Gosh.
Yeah. So
just rewinding a bit there is, I mean, that's so interesting. And I mean, already I feel this is going to be very relatable to a lot of people. You know, it's really interesting. You know, so many people remember that, you know, kids label one another either just because they do, either through kindness, cruelty, you know, endearment. But they do, you know, that's chubby old such and such, that's fatty, that's, you know, skinny, sporty. I remember going back to something at my old school recently, and someone came up to me and said, "You're Sarah, you know, you were the sporty one, weren't you?" And I thought, whoa, I'll take that. But we give those adjectives, and those adjectives can really, they stick, and they you know, whether deliberately or subconsciously, they get under the surface, and they absolutely help. They shape the person that you become. You know,
without a doubt. Yeah, they do. And it doesn't help that. And as much as I love people who say, "Oh, I'm not judgmental at all." Yes, you are. You're a human being. By default, we are all judgmental. But it's not just when we're little. It still happens in the workplace. You will have, you know, people who work in companies, and they'll go, "Oh, the one who always works late," or "Oh, this one," or "that one," the one who's the social animal. We give people titles, sometimes by their appearance, sometimes by their behaviors, but we, as humans, we like to put things in boxes. And what I want to try and help people to understand is that none of us belong in a box. Right? None of us do. We all can create our own space, and we don't have to be hemmed in by society's rules and social conditioning, and we don't need to fit into categories, because a lot of the people that I help have issues with anxiety, and that's a big thing for turning to alcohol. It's one of those things where we believe that alcohol will calm us down, it'll help us to relax. And we got to look at, well, why am I anxious? And often it's because they feel that they don't belong. They don't fit into the mold that they've been taught through school, through parents, through films, through media, that you need to belong, and it looks like this. And what I want people to understand is, let's change that story, because it's not doing us as adults any favors, and it's certainly not doing our kids any favors at all.
And do you think, I mean, you know, this is a deeply personal question, but do you think, you know, going back to, you know, you're saying, you know, you were the sibling that sort of stood out a bit. Were you chubby to start with, and therefore you grew into that, you grew into your adjective, or did you know, and was it, I say, almost comforting that sort of there's chubby old little sister or something? Is that kind of, you know, it, because it's sort of slightly an endearment, it's almost a belonging.
It was almost cute. You know, I got this kind of ringlety, curly, sort of carrot toppy hair, and I'd got freckles, and, you know, I was very active. But, and this is where you don't necessarily recognize until you look at other people. I went to ballet classes when I started off, I think I was about 5 or 6. And I recognized that when the girls stood there in their leotards, their tummy didn't bulge out like mine did. Their thighs didn't cross over and rub together at the top like mine did. So this is where I recognized that I was different. And I would, obviously, when you're doing ballet classes, you're surrounded by mirrors. So you can't hide away from comparison. So when I was little, I don't think I compared too much, but I do know that grandparents made comments, and that aunties made comments, and friends of my mum's made comments. And I distinctly remember getting wet through. I can't remember where we were, but for whatever reason, we got completely wet through, and I needed to borrow some clothes. and this person's jeans wouldn't go above my knees. So this is where I knew I'm bigger, I'm different, I'm fatter than the others. And I didn't like it. I felt embarrassed, you can imagine. I felt ashamed. You know, I'd got no trousers and this person was offering to lend me some and I couldn't get into them. So this is where, yes, did I fit the mold because I was told I was? No. In hindsight, I ate because it gave me a sense of belonging. And I only know that now. I didn't know it then. It was something that was very much part of what the family did, and a good appetite was praised. Picky children were not praised. So if you cleaned your plate and you earned your pudding, then that was seen as being a good thing. So the mixed messages were loud and clear. Clean your plate, eat all your food, you're a good person, but don't be fat.
Yeah, but those messages carry on today, don't they? Because it's, again, you know, I mean, every parent wants to, well, a few things. Every parent, you know, you have the baby, and the first thing you do, you know, is very importantly, you focus a lot on their weight, obviously then their weight loss, and then they recover their weight and stuff, and then where they sit in these percentiles, and it becomes a slight obsession. And then you're sort of, and those of you who are sort of friends with older children go, don't worry, before you know it, they'll be sinking their teeth into a burger or something, you know, so don't worry. But then it sort of carries on into childhood where you've cooked this, you know, amazing, nutritious meal, this thing that you do praise. And, you know, there's a lot of conditioning, I think, that goes on, starting with the parents, thinking about the wider family. And I think it's really interesting what you were saying just then about the ballet class and things, is I think, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I think what you're sort of remembering is that the feeling, not necessarily the words, but you know, there's that feeling. You can remember, I think as a child, when you've got something wrong, you remember that feeling where you were told off. You don't remember precisely what it was, but you just remember that sort of slight, like a freestyle inside that now, you know, you can still get it as an adult, but it's different. You learn to condition it, you learn to manage it. But I think as we remember so much about our childhood through what we felt associated with that.
Yes, and here's the thing, and it's interesting what you said there. It is the feeling, and I knew that I didn't want to feel uncomfortable looking at myself in the mirror, and I didn't when I was, you know, when it was just me, but I did when I could see the rest of the people in the class. So we've got that comparison, and this, unfortunately, we learn to compare, right, as you quite rightly said, from day dot, because you've got these charts and your child should be at this weight by this age, and it goes all the way through school. And you know, for people who have spoken to me about what I think about the whole schooling system, which I'm not going to go into now, but we are learning that more and more the damage done from the early years, where we're comparing and we're doing testing, and there's the praise, you got 8 out of 10, well done, right? And then the person over here who only got 1 out of 10, well, you're a bit stupid, or you weren't focusing, or do better next time. These things that happen at infant school are the things that are carried on right up into our adult life. And so some people learn to cope with those feelings, but a lot of people don't. And that's why they turn to alcohol, or to food, or to drugs, or to sex, or to shopping, or to something that will give them a sense of either being able to numb out and just not think about things, or to be able to change the feeling and the thought process completely, so they don't even have to go there.
Yeah, well, it's that comfort thing, isn't it? You know, the well-known phrase, I'm comfort eating, I'm comfort, you know, I'm retail therapy. It's all playing to the semantics of, you know, society's conditioning.
Right, exactly that. And understanding that we have this idea, and it was honed into me, and I look back now, and I never blame parents, and I encourage all of my clients to never blame. I hate the whole blame game thing. It's a ridiculous idea that it's somebody else's fault. But the language that was used, and the conditioning that was used when I was little is so powerful. And I was taught, not necessarily about my own feelings, but hearing it said about other people, that feelings were good, or feelings were bad, or you shouldn't feel like that, or it's ridiculous to feel like that. Pull yourself together. So what we were taught, or what I was taught and saw and heard, was that you shouldn't express your feelings because you might make somebody else uncomfortable. So not only were you not allowed to feel uncomfortable and say so, but woe betide you if somebody else felt uncomfortable as well. And then so suddenly we've got this weird kind of mix of, I'm not allowed to say how I feel, but I've also got to care about how somebody else feels. Maybe I better just keep my mouth shut. Yeah. And so this is where people find that they can't speak. And I'm very much a person who connects. What I do with my clients is help them to connect their body back to their brain and their mind. Language and our thoughts, because we think in words, so crucially important. But also a lot of my clients have issues with throat, and it stems right back from them having to keep a lid on it, not being able to speak out, not being able to say what they think or say what they felt, for fear of repercussions, for fear of punishment, for fear of being wrong, or just being made to feel less than, inferior, stupid, or whatever it was. And so you get a lot of people who, when I ask them to talk about how it feels and what they want to say, it's really challenging because they've never been able to actually speak out and know that I'm not going to judge you, I'm just going to listen. And that's, I think, what a lot of people need in the home, in the workplace, and at school, and they're not getting it.
Yeah, gosh, thank you for that. Wow, I'm loving this, and I really hope we get a lot of people watching. I mean, it's so interesting. So okay, so here you are. That's what, you know, where you started, what shaped you, what you've done to overcome that. You know, I think your honesty, your candor, I mean, it's so refreshing. It's brilliant, and I think very relatable on so many levels. So now let's move to Go Figure coaching.
Yes, fast forward.
and the inspiration. So here you are, Vicky Midwood. You know, we've understood the, you know, the trials that you've gone through, but what shaped you. But how did the business come about? What was the inspiration behind it?
So I was still very much in my late teens, embroiled in the whole food and alcohol thing, but also men. Looking for feeling good enough, and so I got involved in a relationship, and one of my birthday presents was a gym membership. Hurrah! And I decided in my arrogance that I could do better than the instructors in the gym, so I toddled off to London from the north of England on a 6-week course, brand new thing. It was a personal training course, which it wasn't even called that then. Personal training didn't exist back in 1991, but it's the equivalent of. So I got my personal training qualification, came back up north, walked straight into a job. What better excuse than to be able to exercise all of the time legitimately, talk about bodies, look at myself, work out, keep my stuff going in terms of my weird eating, but pretend all was well. And as I started that journey, literally within 2 months of becoming qualified, I recognized there was so much I did not know. There was so much I needed to know to help my clients. And that's really how the kind of the embryo phase, if you like, of Go Figure coaching evolved, because I recognized I needed to understand, why did people want to lose weight? What were they trying to feel? What were they trying to get from it? I needed to help them to understand how their body worked, because most people had no clue how their body works. So I started to help people to lose weight. I needed to learn about menopause. A lot of my clients were a little bit older. I was 21, but menopause was coming up, and I needed to understand hormones. So for me, my lifelong learning journey started literally when I got my personal training qualification at age 21, and it's never stopped. But that's what shaped Go Figure coaching, is that the way people go about stuff and the stuff that they read, there's so much pseudoscience and basically BS out there. And my aim with Go Figure coaching is to help people to do the right stuff for them in the right order, and understand that there is no one size fits all, right? All diets work, but you've got to pick the one that works for your body. You've got to understand how your body actually does function. So that's how Go Figure coaching came about. And even through rehab, I still was teaching classes right up until a couple of weeks before when I finally got sacked from my job. Yeah. But when I came out of rehab, I didn't even know if I wanted to keep going in the world of fitness and well-being. But then I was just like, what else do I know? What else do I do? And actually, the learning bug in rehab was massive, in that I had a phenomenal psychotherapist in South Africa. So I was in rehab in London for a month, and basically the guy, who was brilliant, he was a northerner, but he was in London, and he went, "Hey lass, if you go back to where you came from now, you will relapse, and physically your body can't handle it." Long story very short, I was close to death when I went into rehab. I'm very lucky that I'm stood here. And so I went to South Africa on his suggestion for 2 months, and that got me interested in brain function, the nervous system, and how to take my learning to a whole other level that nobody had explained to me before. Went on to do an addiction psychology course, and that's really where Go Figure Coaching evolved into what it is now, because there was so much stuff that I was being taught on that course that I disagreed with, and so much stuff that I was told where I was coming from, and the research that I was talking about was not proven, not scientific. And so I decided, you know what, therapy is not for me. I'm not going to be a psychotherapist. She's not for me. But I discovered coaching. And so that's how Go Figure Coaching came about. It ticked all of my boxes in that I could help people find solutions. I could help them with understanding in a simple way the science that they needed to know, not dumbed down science that was in effect actually wrong. And so that's really how it started. And it's just morphed from there. And I decided to specialize in helping people with food and alcohol issues, just because it's something I know personally. I understand the language, I understand the thinking, I understand the anxiety, I understand the idea that people have that it's really hard to change and overcome it. And it's not, if you do the right stuff in the right order for you. And that's the key. It's not about let's go to rehab and let's just do a 12-step program. It's not about let's just get some therapy. It's not about let's eat nutritionally sound food and repopulate the gut bacteria. It's all of those things, but it's never one thing in isolation. And that was the problem. What I was offered was this, or this, or this. And what everybody needs to overcome these things is an and. And that's what I provide. I provide the and. The missing pieces to the puzzle that makes it much, much more simple and straightforward to sustain and maintain a life without you feeling obsessed, compelled to use alcohol or food to just help you to get through the day.
Very good. So if someone is watching this and they're thinking, okay, that's talking to me. That's, you know, what Vicky's describing is me, or my child, or my partner, my spouse, my, you know, my someone in my family, or you know, or I can just feel that is, you know, almost uncomfortable because it's slightly resonating. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So they would want to contact you, and what would you offer, Vicky? You know, what are the services? How can you help an individual or a group or a family? You know, how does it work?
Yes, so that's a really good question. The first thing to do is let's have a conversation, because as you said right at the start, it's about people talking to people, and we need to find out exactly where are you, what have you been through, what have you tried, what's helped you, what's not helped you. So it starts with a conversation, and people can do that literally by jumping onto my website and just hitting the button that says book a call with me, and it's a completely free consultation call where we just chat about what is going on. After that, then people can choose to either go on a fast track version, depending on whether it's a food issue only, whether it's an alcohol issue only, or whether it's both. We can start with a fast track option, which is a VIP day where they spend a whole day with me, where we can go through in one day what potentially would take 6 to 8 one-to-one coaching sessions. So we can get through a lot of stuff really quickly and get you on a trajectory to making changes fast. So that would be something. It's not the right thing for everybody. Or I also offer one-to-one coaching. My sessions are not what I call a psychotherapist's hour. They're not 50 minutes. They're up to 90 minutes. And we talk about what is going on for you and what you need to do, but with a blueprint of just exactly where we're heading. All of the people I work with have to complete a health and a lifetime questionnaire timeline, which gives me a real good picture of where they're at. There's around about 7 to 9 questionnaires that all of my clients fill in so that I can see exactly what's going on with them physiologically, hormonally, emotionally, neurotransmitter wise, food wise, etc. So I've got a whole picture, and then we decide where is the best place to begin for you.
And how do they consult with you? I mean, is it kind of one-to-one? Is it in person, Zoom? You know, what's the mechanism?
Yeah, I like to see people's faces, and I do like Zoom. Obviously, the VIP day is an in-person, face-to-face, one-to-one day. But then after that, we are on Zoom, purely and simply because it's easy. There's no stress. You have to worry about parking. You can be in your own environment. You can make sure that you've got space, you've got peace and quiet. Nobody's going to interrupt you. And I just find that in this kind of format, I can see your facial expressions. Body language is key. Yeah. And when we're worried about, is the time running out on my car parking, or I've got to get here, you're not going to be relaxed. And so I really find that Zoom and you know, the whole lockdown thing when we went onto Zoom was great. I was actually doing a lot of Skype calls anyway, but I do find that it is beneficial. Where possible though, if people are working with me over a longer period of time, I do like to meet up with them and have a day with them every so often, because it just puts a different slant on things. And again, it's that face-to-face, in-person contact, which is so powerful. So we go out to eat, for example.
Absolutely, it is putting it into practice, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's and I know you're based in London, so you know, someone might be tuning to this and go, oh yeah, but I live in Somerset or something, you know. But it means therefore you will go. I was giving my question. I mean, they can come and see you, and then, as you say, meet virtually and perhaps in person, but you'll go to them as well, will you?
Yes, so depending on how far out it is, we can either meet somewhere in the middle that's not too far for either party, or I can come to closer to where you are. And I tend to pick a venue where we're not going to be disturbed, so a nice kind of 4 or 5 star hotel where we can just sit in the bar area, quiet, out of the way. And it's not in an environment where you're worried about somebody seeing you, because obviously a lot of what I do, people don't, they want to, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, and there's a lot of shame around it. Even though I'm trying to change that whole narrative of the way that we look at addictions and people who have issues, it's going to take a long time. It's not going to happen overnight. So people don't want to be seen, and they don't want to the worry that somebody might bump into them. So it doesn't want to be too local, and it doesn't want to be kind of, I don't want to necessarily go into their own home initially, although I do later on, because seeing the environment that somebody is living in is a massive clue to how they're feeling and how they're functioning. So that is a part of it, but further on down the line.
Okay, very good. I'm you know, this is really interesting. And if you had to, I guess in a nutshell, put, you know, what do you think makes you unique or different? You know, it's because there's a lot of people helping people out there. You know, there's a lot of nutritionists, there's a lot of psychotherapists. You know, this is a big industry, you know, for very obvious reasons, because look, you know, we've got an epidemic of all sorts of things, whether it's, you know, mental well-being issues, whether it's obesity issues, you know, so but there's a lot to get our heads around, and especially in this, you know, post-pandemic phase that we're now moved into. Is why would someone come to you rather than pick up the phone to somebody else, do you think?
I think the most important thing that makes me different is that I look at the whole bigger picture, and I help you to actually reconnect, or even discover for the very first time who you actually are and why you even started to do the stuff that you did in the first place, without judgment. I understand the language, I understand the thinking and the feelings in a way that perhaps somebody who's not been through what I've been through can understand. I've gone through a lot of stuff within my journey, including bankruptcy, including rape, including all kinds of things. So there's a lot of areas of expertise where I can say, I get it, I understand, I've been there, did it feel like this? And that's the difference. I speak their language. I'm not trying to bamboozle you with science. Yes, I'm science-based, very much so. But I'm also very spiritual. I'm also very much about you connecting to the inner being, to your true self. And so I offer a whole holistic package.
Yeah. Very good. And so let's talk about, obviously you started this journey in your teens, 20s, obviously with a big mishap along the way, and where, your own journey of learning and discovery and trial and so forth. But let's talk about you as a business. Yeah. And because I often think when I talk to you, you are my 55th interviewee on this series. And I tell you, I love it. I'm loving this, but it's this it's so interesting, because this is I often think when you talk to coaches, there's something very vocational, almost altruistic in what you're doing.
Yeah, I think
you're right. You go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think for most coaches, we don't decide that we want to serve people and just for an ego boost. I think we do it because we genuinely know that it doesn't necessarily have to be as hard as it was for us trying to get the answers ourselves. And I think that's a big driver for a lot of coaching businesses.
Yeah, but you're also running a business, and tell us, in your own words, what brings you joy? What do you think is the most rewarding part of what you do?
Oh, that's so easy. It's seeing people actually get the ahas and recognize that it is possible for them, that they can do it. And hey, it's not as hard as I thought. Go figure.
Yeah. Seeing people get their ahas.
Very absolutely good. Yeah, that is when you actually can see that it's clicked and somebody gets it, and they can see that it's helping them, and they are feeling and being a completely different person. I can't put into words how it just makes me smile. It just literally makes me grin from ear to ear. I kind of get that warm, fuzzy, fizzy feeling inside, because it's like, this is a person now who not only knows this stuff for themselves, but they know it for life. And if they do have kids or grandkids, they can pass this stuff on. And we can start to break this horrible social conditioned narrative about how we should be and what we should think and what we should feel and the boxes that we should fit in. So it just lights me up more than anything when somebody else gets it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I get it totally. And I guess, so here you are, a business owner, but you talked about the joy of what it brings. But if we get so many people on here who watch this either now, watch it afterwards, and they may be thinking about starting a business, maybe they're running a business. What would you say, Vicky, what's your best advice to someone who is thinking about starting a business?
I think you have to be absolutely clear on why do you want to start it? What is it going to give you that you don't already have? Yeah. Be absolutely clear on your reasoning behind it. And know that there is no reason, by the way, that is wrong, but be really clear on it. Right. Yeah. So whatever that reason is, and then make sure that when you're talking about how you help people and what you offer, if your business is a helping business, that you are very, very clear on who it is that you want to work with. I think if you ask any coaches who've been around for a long time, as I have, it's over 30 years, then we've made the classic mistakes, especially when you're new in business. You kind of say yes to anybody because you want to grow your business and you're learning. And some of the clients that I've said yes to in the past, I have really wished I had not. So, because they've caused me so much personal angst and stress and doubting of my own abilities and all that kind of good stuff. So I think be really clear on who do you like and enjoy working with. Because one thing that I will say about business is I kind of got pushed into becoming self-employed. It wasn't my choice. I'm glad it happened, but it wasn't actually my choice. But if it is your choice, then you need to make sure that you enjoy it, because you're probably going to spend a lot of your time doing it. And so you need to be really clear on who do you enjoy working with. Not who do you think you should work with and who do you think you can work with, but who do you really enjoy working with? Because those will be the clients that you will attract, if you're really clear on that.
Yeah, there's so much in that. It's so interesting. And again, I mean, it's interesting hearing you talk, because what I love about this series is there's a lot of commonality to what comes out when we talk about the joy that running your business brings you. It's all about there's a consistency. It's so interesting. It's all about that, taking the stress away, making someone's life better, easier, freer, more fulfilling, freeing them of what has held them back. And you can see that joy that brings them. But also there are things that that my guests share which are different, because everything makes that individual different. And I think that is a really, really important point that you make, is that particularly being a solopreneur, running your own business on your own, is you spend a lot of time probably in your own company, perhaps with a team, often with clients. It's a hard old grind, and yes, it can be hugely fulfilling, as you've just mentioned, but actually you want to make sure that that there's an inner fulfillment all along the way, and that takes you through, I think, those particularly big dips that we all go through.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I would say, if anybody is thinking about starting a business, is I say be clear on your why. But I also think, what is the legacy that you want to leave? What is your mission? What do you want to be able to say, hey, do you know what? I'd spent the last 20, 30, 50, whatever, many years doing this because I've able to leave behind this. And for me, my mission is to help to change the whole narrative that we have in schools that puts so much pressure on people's worth and exam results, and the language that we use in schools with comparison, and it's either right or wrong or black or white. And so if I can change 10,000 people's lives and help adults bring up their kids to recognize the flawedness of the social conditioning in the school system, and that we don't need to fall into that narrative of believing that the thinner you are, the better you are, the more A stars you have, the better you are. Let's get away from that narrative. And if I can start to do that and help people to understand that they need to embrace who they are as individuals, because we've all got something to offer, then that's my mission done. If I'm enjoying the process along the way and I'm helping a load of clients too, yes, bring on more of that. But that's ultimately what I want. And I think if you have a bigger picture, when it does get challenging, you can keep that as your kind of carrot, if you like, and just go, do you know what? Tomorrow will be another day. The next client will be a different client. I'll get over this issue, and life goes on. And I think it's so important that we do have that bigger picture view of, why am I doing what I do?
It's the authenticity, right? It's the because that's authenticity. Again, self-awareness actually has duration.
It does. And it's got a driving force that makes you want to keep on growing and trying and looking in different directions instead of following this path. And that's something that I think more of us need to allow ourselves to do in business. Just because somebody else has gone this way about it, it doesn't mean to say there isn't another path over there. There's actually more fun and just as viable, and it might suit you better.
So this has been, I mean, it's been so fascinating. I mean, so revealing, so enjoyable. I've loved this. This has been great. So, and what I would say, we got a few people watching. If you've worked with Vicky, or you've got any questions, please pop them into the comments box. This isn't just my interview, my chat. We want to hear, your comments. We want to hear your questions too. So, I'm going to close in just a couple of minutes. But I guess, and the other thing is, we will share this We're going to share this on our IGTV channel. We will put this on our YouTube channel. We'll then pop this across all the different social media. So if you've enjoyed this, or this is a subject that you think is resonating with you, with someone in your family, a friend, someone you know, all we ask for you is to share it, to make sure they know about Vicky, that they hear what Vicky has to say too, because it is very important. So Vicky, if we're sitting down talking again, let's say in 6, 12, 18, 24 months, I mean, I think we've all lost sense of time over pandemics. So what does 2 years mean? I don't know. But you know, where do you think you're going to take Go Figure Coaching? Where are you going to take Vicky Midwood? You know, what will be, you know, what will bring you joy as we look forward?
I think for me, doing retreats and taking small groups of people on retreats where we can spend a good chunk of time, you know, 5, 7, or even 10 days, actually really working through this stuff in a very safe environment where we can really fully focus on doing the work intensely, rather than it spacing out and life happening and stuff in between. So more retreats both in the UK and abroad is definitely where I am heading, and collaborating and helping out more businesses. There's so many people in the workplace, so stepping into the world of businesses who have employees who maybe are still not in a space and a place where they can admit that they have an issue with food or with alcohol because of the fear of judgment or losing their job. And that's what I want to really focus on as well. So that's where I will be going in the next 5 to 10 years.
Goodness, thank you very much indeed. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I wish you every joy in that 5 to 10 year period. And please come back and tell us more.
Thanks. I just want to add one thing in case people are wondering if they are a parent and they have got teenagers or young people who are struggling. Yes, do still get in touch with a conversation, because even if your child is getting help from social services, you might just need a little bit of a chat yourself. And I'm very happy to just have a conversation about what's happening for you and you dealing with it, because I think it's something that a lot of parents do struggle with and they don't know who to turn to. So jump on my link tree on Instagram, and all of my links are on there, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. Thank you very much. And for those of you who've joined us literally just towards the end, don't worry, we're going to share this onto IGTV in just a few minutes, so you'll be able to catch up on the whole chat. Vicky, thank you very much indeed for your time. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you. Thanks for having me.